Everyone, I'm Charlie, and welcome back to another DraftKings DFS slate breakdown. Saturday Prem slate on our hands here. Some really nice contests now that NFL is over. We've been really kind of treated 10K up top for first in the main kind of flagship GPP. So yeah, it's really exciting to see kind of a resurgence for these Premier League contests. In terms of the slate, it is Aston Villa at -230 and Bournemouth at -200 as the big favorites on a 5-game slate. And only Man City is kind of the true big team, so there's really plenty of ways to go here. In terms of projected lineups and potential set pieces, for West Ham, I think it will be Cresswell potential monopoly in this lineup. There's no Soler, which is interesting. Also could be like a double split with maybe Bowen or Emerson having a share. Also, I expect Edson and Emerson to be swapped if they have this kind of lineup. Edson's more of a DM and Emerson is a wingback, of course. That's just a bug. And then for Brentford, it should be Mbeumo and Damsgaard, unless Jensen is in which case he'd be the guy splitting with Mbeumo. Villa and Ipswich should be Tielemans and probably Digne splitting. Maybe Bailey, maybe McGinn take a couple as well. Interesting that they don't have Asensio or Rashford in the projected starting lineup. We'll see how much they want to ease those guys into it. So yeah, it's just a lot of attacking talent on Villa that can all kind of rotate in and out now. Ollie Watkins too was questionable too. We'll see if he's healthy. So definitely some things to keep out for this Villa lineup come near lock time. Ipswich, I think it'll be a Leif Davis and Enciso split. Fulham and Forest should be a Lukic monopoly unless Pereira starts, in which case it'd be a Pereira monopoly. And then for Forest, it should be Elliot Anderson and Elanga somewhat splitting. I think Elanga has the larger share. If they end up going just one guy, they're both right-footed options, so there's no real true righty-lefty split like you see traditionally from teams. So they can always end up changing kind of what they do there, but they've been doing Elanga one side, Anderson one side, typically, even though they're both right-footed players. Man City and Newcastle, I think it will be Foden and Marmoush splitting in this team. De Bruyne, they just don't think plays in the league. Again, he's not played there much, so I get it. They just had UCL as well. So it's semi-understandable that they continue to rotate him out. And then Savinio could also have an outside chance of having a set piece or two instead of Foden. Newcastle should be Gordon and Hall mostly. Trippier taken a lot in the past, just not lately. So he's kind of a maybe with him. I just don't really think he's much of a set piece guy. They're kind of just phasing him out of the team. Whether his next step is retirement or new team, who knows? But like I said, he just doesn't really seem to. He seems to be on the periphery of this team in all aspects, whether that be playing or involved in like the set piece game. Southampton should be Manning and Fernandez splitting. Bournemouth should be Brooks and Kluivert in this team. We'll see if Lewis Cook is at right back. If he's a right back, he just doesn't take. If he's in like a CDM role, he should have some sets. And then we'll see if Tavernier plays over Brooks or Semenya. If he starts, he's more likely to have sets for the left-footed side because they are a true righty-lefty split here. Prices. Ishak more than Holland, which is super interesting. Holland's got better goal scoring odds, and they're both goal dependent guys. Interestingly enough, they have the exact same fantasy point average, which is funny. But I'd go Holland over Ishak if going one or the other in cash. I mean, in GPP, they really make an argument for anybody as usual. Both of them I don't really love in cash, just because it's going to be a pretty tight matchup. I think Man City, Newcastle are both good sides typically. I think that could be kind of even there, and they can cancel each other out potentially. Chris Wood, I think it's a tough matchup against Fulham. They have Fulham as favorites in this game, and when Fulham typically hold the ball and Forest typically counterattack, which is not great for like your open play kind of floor flow. per points. Like basically these Forest guys become super goal dependent, which scares me a little bit. Same can be said about Alanga, despite having the set pieces. Like he's kind of more of an upside, hoping for goal contributions play. Jared Bowen, if this was like the old West Ham where he's like guaranteed a side of set pieces, I'd be all over this. Even without them, I don't think he's that crazy. Brentford are not a possession team. Graham Potter is a possession coach. Excuse me. Um, so I expect West Ham to have the ball here, and even if Jared Bowen doesn't have set pieces, which he probably doesn't anymore, he's just been so solid, especially when he gets a goal contribution, plays 90 minutes typically. Like I think there's an argument here to be made for a Jared Bowen, but like I said, I'm just not as sure on it without set pieces, just because I love just playing guys with that kind of built-in floor, which you don't really get with these semi-goal dependent forwards like Bowen has semi become. Doku feels a little pricey to me. Asensio, he potentially takes over Digne as a left-footed set piece option if he starts. I could be persuaded to do that, but like I said earlier, Villa just have so much attacking talent in that squad right now that he's not going past 60, 70 minutes, which is just the small worry I have with him. Clivert, I get behind at 7,700. I don't think that's a bad play at all at forward. He's been super solid on penalty kicks, which is always a plus side, and he's just been scoring them every time he's getting them. So I could really get behind a Justin Clivert here. Same with the Savinho and Semenya. Both have not terrible matchups. Savinho's had a decent floor to him. Same with Savinho typically. So both these guys I think are super solid in their range. Like I'd rather have one of these kind of 3 or 4 guys over a Holland or Ishak in cash. Now, Andres Garcia is right back, and he continues to be an overpriced forward. I don't get this at all. Just if anyone ever plays this play, like that's just auto donation because he's just not a forward, and he's not cheap to warrant his pricing either, or he's not he doesn't warrant his pricing either with his role as a fullback. I just don't understand how they haven't fixed that yet. Rashford, I could be tempted by Marcus Rashford if he starts. I don't think it's that crazy. He's got something to prove at Villa, and he's just once again one of those talented players in the league, despite not showing that at Man United, which I think we can forgive him for. Because Man United are just a bit of a dumpster fire. Villa's a lot more productive environment, I think, for him. I really think he could come good here, but he might be a bit of a wait and see just because we don't know what his minutes are really going to look like and or just his role in this team. Like they could end up playing him as like a number 9 potentially if Ollie Watkins isn't fit. So I'm just a little bit unsure on him right now, but I will probably have shares in GPP if he starts, just not in cash likely. I think he's a little bit risky. Dango, I don't mind. Probably more of a GPP play. Same with Morgan Rogers. Daniel Mallon is not bad at 6,700. But like I said, there's just that West Ham minutes dilemma and kind of just what they do with their substitutes. Marmouche. I'm playing this for 6,200. Especially if there's no De Bruyne. Like he should have set pieces in that case. He's looked super solid for Man City. I know he's only probably going to go about 70, but he's done pretty well in a couple of tough matchups against Chelsea and Arsenal. Like I could see him easily getting 9-10 floor here. He had that crazy floor game against who was it? Leyton Orient, I think it was. They played in the cup where he was super solid despite not getting a goal contribution. It's like a sitter, unfortunately. But if he continues to put himself in good spots, I'm sure the goal contributions will flow. And at 6K, I will happily go that any day of the week. So that's my first core play, I'll tell you just right now. Then I'll talk about Adama Traore if he starts. Solid floor play. He's kind of similar to your Savinhos and your Semenyos. His minutes are not as guaranteed. That is the worry there, but he does what those kind of guys do. He doesn't take set pieces or anything, but he's just solid just for crossing and getting some shots there, and he'll find his way to 10 if they give him like 90 minutes, which is like not guaranteed, but also has a chance of goal contributions too, in which case he'd just be way up there for points if he can add one of those to like a 10-point floor. So yeah, I like Adama Traore a lot at 5K. That's probably your value forward I'm looking at here. Willian, if he starts, I think there's probably 0 chance, but That'd be a lock probably too if he ends up playing just because he's 4,700 and probably will have set pieces if he plays. Don't know if that's a guarantee, but probably depends on lineup. Liam Delap, I'll chat out for GPP as well. I wouldn't go there in cash, but he's been super solid for Ipswich. I could see this game being pretty high scoring potentially, depending on how first that early or how early that first goal comes in. Excuse me. And I think Ipswich are a team that typically will go for it, and I think Aston Villa will kind of oblige, and it can become pretty end to end. Jack Clark, same kind of reasoning as the lap, a little bit more floor there, a little less ceiling. Same with Hutchinson, same with Philogene. Like these cheap Ipswich guys, I don't think are bad plays at all. Midfielders. Buemo at 11K just feels a little bit pricey to me. I'm not really interested in that for cash. I know he's been just so solid, but 11K feels like a little bit of a premium I don't really want to get to if I can help it, especially because there's going to be a lot of bids on this slate. It's a super stacked spot for that position, and I think that he could just get similar production from half the price potentially. But he's not a bad play at all on Buemo just because it's just whether you want to eat that salary for him. De Bruyne and Foden, I'm fine with both of those guys. Like I never really have anything bad to say about either of them. They're typically pretty solid. Foden, I know had that bad game against Arsenal, but I think he'll probably rebound against Newcastle. De Bruyne, when he starts, is always pretty good. Just has not started that much lately. Tielemans, a little pricey for me. I just don't really think he has the upside, especially if he plays kind of in this deeper role with like a McGinn who is pretty box to box as well. Like there'll be a lot of times where Tielemans will be the deepest guy in this formation. If we see him like as the 10 or something, they have like Kamara at CDM and like Bogart or some other center back. I know they're missing a ton of defenders. But if there's some way we see Tielemans further forward, I'd be a little more interested. But even then, 8K feels a little bit pricey for a guy who just has not offered a ton of upside. Other guys I'm semi-interested in, Pereira, like I said about Nottingham Forest, they're a team that likes to sit back, full and keep possession, lines up well for having a bunch of set pieces, a bunch of floor, which Pereira can go high for points in that kind of scenario. The worry there is the minutes and whether he even starts at all. But it's 6K. I don't think that's a bad play at all. Tavernier, I don't think is bad at 6K. I'd probably play that potentially as well. I just don't know how fit he is. That's the kind of concern there. But whenever he plays, he's just been solid. Like there's a strong chance I get to that as well. Like, there's a lot of mids I really like I said. And once again, that's why I'm not as gung ho about expensive and Waymo when like Tabernier's not that different than him for half the price with a better matchup. Bailey is a little pricey here. We used to see him in the 4 or 5K range. And Ciso. I like Enciso a lot. He's just a guy who shoots, gets tackles, foul drawns. And this Ipswich team where he's kind of should be the star, I'm probably getting to this despite it being a tough matchup. D700 is just such a solid price for a guy who just gets DFS points. He's your ideal DFS kind of player. The shots may not be effective, or it's just like just crossing might not be that great, but it just points on the board and he'll rack up those quickly. So I love Enciso for 5,700 here, despite the tough matchup. Damsgaard, never mind. Anderson, I wouldn't get to Anderson because they're playing Fulham, but Damsgaard I like as well. Like this 5K range, I think is an absolute gold mine in mid. Like 4 to 5 to 6K guys, so many good options. Brooks, you could even make an argument for if he's the one starting over Tavernier. Mateus Fernandez. This is just a safe cash play. He'll get you your 10 floor, especially if they see no Manning, which I think they might end up starting Wellington or something over just because Manning played in the cup last game. In which case, they have Manning at center back. But if they start with a different center back and put Manning at wing back, I'd love Mateus Fernandez even more just because he'd have a potential knock goal. He'd go from good play to lock probably. If we see no Manning in, and even with Manning, like I said, good play there for 5K. And once again, showing how stacked this range is. Jensen, don't love just because I don't know if he has the upside. Gundogan, I could see getting to as well, just because that's cheap Man City exposure there. unprojected, so I don't spend too much time on that. But 4K is not bad at all. He's not been that cheap all season. So Lair at 4,400, sure. I don't think that's crazy. Calvin Phillips, if there's no Enciso, should be the backup set piece taker. I don't think that's that crazy in that scenario. Groenbeck on loan from Rennes. Hasn't taken any set pieces or anything, but there's a lot of potential here. It's like a GPP flyer for 3,700. I don't think that's that crazy. And then Lukic is your just dirt cheap. You'll take your 10 in set pieces and call it a day, which is fine for 3K. And that's uh, a completely fine route as well if you want to go here at mid instead of like cramming 3, 5 to 6K guys. And I don't really want to talk about any of the other guys down here, but there's plenty of good, great mid options on this slate. Defender. Dinier 6K. He's just so weird. Like I just don't understand when he does well. Sometimes he'll play one half. Sometimes he'll go 90. He sometimes gets subbed early or like semi early, but usually halftime or 90 for him, which is just weird. There's no real in between there. And sometimes he'll drop a 10, sometimes he'll drop a 6. Like sometimes they'll give him like almost monopoly and have him take both sides of corners. Sometimes he'll take he'll take like 25%. He'll split aside with somebody. There's no real way to tell what they're going to end up doing. Similarly to Arsenal, Aston Villa have like a specific set piece coach. So I'm sure he cooks different things up midweek and there's no really real way to tell what he'll end up doing. But for 6K and with this matchup, I don't think that's a terrible play. Robinson, I think, is going to be the popular D because it is a good matchup against Nottingham Forest. And he's just played super well. This is probably the best, just safe defender slate. Just because best safe defender on the slate. Despite not being a traditional like set piece taking defender that you kind of look for. Like he just has a floor of his own, just getting up and down the field, just as your typical attacking fullback. 10 assists on the season too. Like he's been super solid in that department. So I'm happy to take Anthony Robinson here, and I like that he's cheaper than Denier as well. But I like both of them. Gavardio feels a little pricey. Hall, I think, is a tough matchup. Trippier, I just think is washed. Manning, I don't mind. There's cheaper alternatives to your Robinsons and your Deniers. Staying with Cresswell down here. 3,400, probably at center back, but if you want likely set pieces, he's got those at least. And Sugawara, I don't mind at 3,300 if he starts. Rico Lewis at 3K flat, I don't think is that crazy. Same with some of these Man City center backs who sometimes play midfield. Like if John Stones inverts up here, or Akanji at right back or something. I'm just trying to think of different things they've done. All those guys are pretty cheaply priced and fine as just punts. Or Akanji's out, but whoever plays at right back here, like if Stones does or something, so you're getting like essentially a midfielder in a defender slot, which is always kind of worth another look. Goalkeeper, I think it's an absolute crapshoot as usual. Play whoever the rest of your build dictates, whoever kind of fits the salary, whoever fits with your other players in GPP. And I don't have a ton else to add for that position. In terms of a core, I talked about it a little bit. I'm going Marmouche. I'm going mid is tough. I'm going Fernandez likely, especially if there's no Manning. We'll see. But even then, probably still my favorite mid on the slate. And then I'm gonna put Robinson. This could change. This is subject to change, especially in this midfield spot. Like I could end up going a different guy here, like a Tavernier or something, just depending on lineups. But that is another reason to join the FSI Discord through the website linked below. But that'll be it, guys, and I'll see you for the next one.